Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our Voices of Liberation podcast. Here we take action advocacy group, or TAG for short, as we affectionately call it. So today we are going to be talking about some of the 2025 plans for TAG, and we will have one of our comrades on, NaTisha Washington. She's an amazing advocate from this area here, but she does advocacy throughout, I would say, the world everywhere, really focusing on environmental justice. And it's a pleasure to have NaTisha here today. So before we bring her on, I'm just going to go over a little bit of background about TAG and some of the things we do have coming up in 2025. So for all the new people here, TAG stands for Take Action Advocacy Group, or TAG for short. We've been around for 10 years. Last year we celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and we are a Black liberation organization. We do social justice work, of course, as well as Black liberation work in the smaller communities. And we focus on small areas because we recognize that's where all your isms live, take place, they're rooted, they go from family to family. We started out here in Allegheny County, which is in the greater Pittsburgh area, in a community we affectionately call the Mon Valley. This is along the Monongahela River, and we are those small communities outside of the bigger city of Pittsburgh. So we are traditionally left out of everything, literally, unless we ask and demand for it, which is basically why TAG exists. When we started 10 years ago, it was because we were traditionally just being left out. We initially started about the homicides and the violent crime going on in our communities. Just after years of doing the work, we recognized how systemic racism played a part in that. So that's when we kind of shifted to promoting Black liberation. And the way we take action will shift just a little bit in 2025, but we have our trainings that we've been doing for a few years now. So we do community trainings for anybody, individuals, people, churches, community groups, nonprofits. Those are on Black liberation, movement building, community organizing, staying in the movement, wellness, rapid response, race relations. We also have social work abolition, our complaint program, and we call it that because we work holistically with the entire family. We recognize that when people are going through things with the system, which is traditionally all the time for Black people, other marginalized groups, a lot of things come along the way. They have to pay bills, so we help out with those if we can. Legal assistance if we have capacity at the time. We also just work with the entire family, so that's why we call it social work abolition. And we're really big on solutions of not involving the system because we're abolitionists. And then we also have chapters with adults and youth, and they each have a community action plan they're working on. Our adult chapter bears our name, our original name, Take Action Mon Valley. We have storytelling and education, which is kind of what we're doing now. Our storytelling is our podcast, and our political education this year is going to focus more around civic and political education, just explaining things to people, how to run for office, what to look for when you go for the polls, poll protection, and the advocacy. We advocate for just about every social justice initiative you could think of, but we're really going to focus heavily this year on environmental justice and wellness and healing. And we have our wellness sessions we've been doing for 3 years now. We are shifting those to focus more on Black women and Black men who are dealing with chronic illnesses. And we have yoga, meditation, and sound healing, really getting into that wellness and healing side of liberation. TAG has taught people how to fight for years and years, and now we can teach people how to rest and fight. So that's what we'll be kind of doing in 2025. And with the focus on environmental justice, we live in the Mon Valley, as I communicated, and the Mon Valley has some of the worst air quality in the country. We have extremely high cancer rates, and I, as a 45-year-old Black woman who grew up in McKeesford, I've never drunk the water because I've been told that I should not ever touch the water. So we're tired of that shit. And that's why we intentionally, the last few years, have taken up space in this field, and we will continue to do so because we cannot breathe, we can't drink the water, and frankly, I am tired of my people dying due to this meal and the effects that it's had on our community. So we'll be doing a lot around that. one of the things that we did over the last 2 years was focused on the food apartheid here in the Mon Valley, which is directly connected to environmental justice. Because half the damn reason we're in that is because of our air and our water quality. And then when we were doing listening sessions, the community said, what about a garden? So we do have a garden in McKeesport. We are looking to get another one funded. It'll be for the entire Mon Valley, and hopefully we can get the funds to start a Mon Valley gardening group who will man that garden. But that all came literally from the people. So I'm going to um, bring in our guest, NaTisha Washington, from the Breathe Project, to talk a bit more about environmental justice.
Good
So
morning.
thank you for coming on, NaTisha.
Thank
So
you.
appreciate you and all the work that you do for us in these spaces. So it's been a pleasure to work with you. And Tisha is with the Breathe Project, but she also is a consultant. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi, I'm NaTisha Washington. I'm the communications manager at the Breathe Project. I am also, as Vaughn said, a consultant with Washington Green Solutions and also do co-partnering consulting with Kelly Henderson for Just by Nature. So my consulting is focused around environmental programming, diversity, inclusion, and really just trying to expand capacity of nonprofits who want to do more environmental justice work. And also, I have just finished my first year as a Wilkinsburg Borough Councilwoman, so I am an elected official.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on to join us. And I figured you were the perfect guest to really come on and talk about environmental justice. So I always share my story and I continue to do that. I've been organizing for years in the Mon Valley and other places, but I'm hyperly focused locally here in
Mm.
the Mon Valley. And a few years, like I knew about the environment, but I was like so busy, fucking up white supremacy and fighting
Hot,
and
hot,
fighting
hot.
and fighting. And it was really our comrade Summer Lee who
Mm,
was like, because she's from the Mon Valley, she said we have to really care about this. Her and Liv Bennett and really broke it down for me.
mm,
And then I just kept running into people like yourself who really said, no, you really need to, understand the connections, the intersections with
mhm,
all the other things that you're fighting, and the fact that you just can't breathe. So,
mhm.
in your words, what is environmental justice and climate justice?
Yeah, I would say environmental justice for me is really just ensuring everybody has a clean, safe, healthy environment and that they can live comfortably in that environment because people forget that we have not only like the lawful right, but the God given right of clean air, clean water, and access to the land that we live on. And that is a right that we haven't been able to really fulfill in a long time. So having environmental justice is ensuring that we are able to fulfill that right for all people. And with climate justice, it's ensuring that we're protecting this planet and what's happening to it because everything that we add to it, everything that we take from it is damaging it. And it's a living thing, just like we are living things. So if we don't have justice for the planet that houses us, then we don't have justice for ourselves as well. So they
Mhm.
kind of go together. And I personally see environmental justice as just ensuring that people are able to live their lives comfortably. I see a lot of old people, a lot of children that have to suffer for years because of something that they can't control, which is the environment that they live in. And, people who are given this, lawful right to protect them should be fulfilling that right to protect them from these harms.
Mhm. And why would you say it's important for Black communities to get involved?
Well, because they're mostly affecting us. So
Mhm.
environmental harms are disproportionate for, Black minority communities, especially low income communities. We're the communities that are near most of the factories. We're the communities that are mostly near landfills, like incinerators. And, this also affects a lot of our rural areas. And we forget that there are Black Appalachian people too. And there are people that are
Mhm.
Black in these rural areas, and they get kind of left out, like even in Beaver, we've been very intentional on ensuring that Aliquippa residents are included in what's happening with the shell plant because,
Hmm.
you see what's on the news and like you see the interviews, and a lot of times you don't see our faces. So a lot of times I want to make sure that people are seeing our faces because we are the main ones being hurt by this, and our stories are the ones that really do get people, which is why I do communications now,
Hmm.
because I wanted to make sure that our stories weren't lost, that the people that have been going to these public meetings, fighting for air quality, fighting for our customer assistance programs, fighting for lead removal of our lead lines, like all of these fights are recorded on like the website of our county, but nobody really hears the stories unless a big news company comes. So I want people to know that this is really affecting us, your grandparents, your children, like people in your community that you see, they're living in these homes suffering. And I just want people to know that if we don't start having our narratives told and shared out to the world, then people will forget that this is happening to us. Because I go to countless meetings and have to remind people that these 1,000 people, these 60% of these 1,000 people are real people. They're not just numbers. And we have to make sure that we're speaking out so that they see the numbers and don't just think, oh, well, it's just these people that come out to the meeting that have the luxury to come out to these meetings. And
Hmm.
it's not that, it's all of us, especially us, and we don't see enough of us.
Yes, absolutely. And have you seen throughout your work like the power of storytelling? Have you seen that shift people?
Yeah, I think one of the stories that, besides Keon, which is a very like powerful story that every time he tells it, it moves people. And I'm so thankful I was able to make that video of when he told
Mhm.
it. But outside of his story, when they had the EPA regional director come in,
Mhm.
Adam Ortez, and they had the Mon Valley residents, especially residents in Clariton, walk around with him and tell them their stories and show them like, this is my living situation. The mill's right there, like I can see it. And
Mhm.
you can be in that area, smell the fumes, see the
Mhm.
flares. It really just puts a different perspective to when somebody's just sending you a document with pictures on it, where you're actually
Mhm.
walking it with these people and seeing how they're suffering, seeing people in their wheelchairs and having their breathing machines because of what's happening to them. It gives person a different like feeling when they hear what's going on to people, because now they can visually see it. And I
Mhm.
actually got to see the fruits of that labor when the EPA did they do like a summary of like what they've been doing and what they're going to do in
Mhm.
the future. And our regional director came up there and he was like, I was so impacted by the stories that frontline residents
Mhm.
told me and what I saw, that I know that we had to do better. We had to do more engagement. We had to give more resources to these communities. And I will say we have been seeing a lot of good increases in EPA funding and federal grants. Now, the status of that is a little weary right now,
Right.
but it did change how they saw where they were lacking in their department, which I'm thankful for that.
Okay. Well, that's good that they were able to see that because I know storytelling is so powerful, especially when you're doing these kind of things. This kind of work to us is ancestral
Mhm.
because if you look at the reason a lot of our ancestors even came to this area was because of the mill,
Mhm.
so that they can have a job, and
Mhm.
they left the South for that reason, and it's killing us.
Yeah.
So it's like generationally killing us. Like it's
Yeah. And then
my.
it goes to the
Mhm.
Midwest. We had joined this American Steel group,
Mhm.
and there's people in Chicago and Indiana. When I went to Gary, it was just like a lot of people, they're starting to make the connections of a
Yeah.
lot of our people here in Pittsburgh when our mills closed down, then
Mhm.
went out that area, and a lot of them ended up in Chicago and Indiana and got further mistreatment and got, even worse issues. Like, we have more protections than they do out there, where they have like the coal mills, they have like petrol, like they have BP gas out there, and like nobody's protecting them. And they were promised the same things we were promised, like, come up
Mhm.
here, you'll have a good job, you'll have a nice home. And it's just like, it's affecting us nationally. But the interesting thing about Pittsburgh is we have this like coal steel foundation, and we
Hmm.
have a lot of political foundation around these industries that if we change, a lot of the other areas will see that change and be able to do, and they are watching us to do those changes as well.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of, I don't think people get that. A lot of times, they'll hear of Pittsburgh, think of the Steelers, and they don't even think of, the areas outside of Pittsburgh or just Pittsburgh
Hmm.
itself,
Yeah.
and the way we suffer. And Clairton has a cancer road, and
Hmm.
Braddock and North Braddock and McKeesboro
Hmm.
considered sacrifice zones. And
Hmm. Yeah.
it's so hard for me sometimes to wrap my mind around that shit. That like I literally grew up and I still live in a sacrifice zone, and
Yeah.
like what the hell? Um, but they're telling you on paper, and I love storytelling, and I know it's so powerful, but it does piss me off to a certain degree that we have to keep telling our stories and telling our stories and telling our stories and dying.
Yeah.
Like literally dying. Like
Yeah.
people are dying. You're not gonna. I probably say like 1 in 5 people around here have asthma.
Oh yeah, like our stats say that
Hmm.
around 800, I believe like 865 people annually are dying prematurely because of industrial air pollution. We're in the top 1% of cancer rates for industrial pollution specifically nationally. You know, 3 times the national average for asthma rates, 2 times the state average for asthma rates. Our lead levels have been like they're going down, but they have been some of the highest lead rates. Like even when we had our like water contamination in the city, people started to find out like throughout our whole county that we
Hmm.
were having worse water than Flint because
Yep.
our particles were different. Like what was in our water was different. And when I tell people about what happened in McKeesport when the PFA foams were
Hmm.
leaked into the water because of the fire, people are like, how were they able to shut the water down, for a whole month and, people not know it, not be on the news. I was like, well, because it happened in McKeesport. And that's the issue of like the ways of storytelling. Like I have to
Hmm.
watch the news all the time and I can see a shooting, I can see like criminal activity happening. But like when we do like these major green projects or when like environmental hazards happen, like there's no news on it. Like the biggest news that we've had recently, and a lot of it came from residents and
Hmm.
watchdogs that amplified it, was the minor explosion that happened at Clearton just a few
Yeah.
days ago. And I have like we shared the video and it like people are seeing it, but there's no real like news around it besides like the statement from the health department, which thankful that the health department put out a statement because the
Hmm.
history of them putting out statements hasn't been good thus far. But now they have put out a statement, even though it was like later on, like this happened at
Hmm.
4 a.m. The statement came out around 2 p.m. By then, people were already outside, and we don't know what came out of that smoke. We don't know what happened with that explosion, but we will know through our health, and residents will find
Hmm.
out through if they go to the ER or if they can't go to work that day. And we've seen that happen time and time again, where like these incidents happen,
Hmm.
drastic numbers happen at the ER, and then people are just like, oh, it will be okay. Like the people will be okay. And
Yeah.
it's just like, no, they need protection, they need help, they need resources, they need alerts, they need people to actually listen to them when they put in
Hmm.
complaints. We have talked about their complaint system, and it's like people don't want to share their stories because it's like, I'm coming to these meetings, I'm complaining about the same thing, and we're still delaying this. Like we're on our, I think, what, fifth or sixth meeting to try to pass a permit fee so that the health department can have money to fight major polluters. And it's only affecting major polluters. But because it seems unfair to the industry, now it's we have to delay this, but we're delaying this at the expense of people dying by the hundreds and thousands.
Yes. Yeah. And we've been dying for
Yeah,
centuries. It's like
generations.
literally, this is like ancestral. Like
Mhm,
we've just been dying and dying, and from the asthma,
mhm,
not being able to drink the water, the cancer,
mhm.
I mean, I had code was developed into long COVID
Hmm.
because of, where I am. And
Yeah,
it smells like
you can't
rotten
walk
eggs.
in an unhealthy environment.
Right. Two times a day in the same spot, it smells like rotten eggs. So,
Hmm.
and then when you speak about resources, this is also connected to there's so many intersections.
Hmm.
Because if an explosion happens in Claire and they have to get to the ER, there is no way for them to get to the ER
Hmm.
because of the transportation.
Who says they have health insurance?
They got to have health insurance. There's not even a hospital close by.
Yeah, transportation. How are they going to get?
How,
Yeah.
how are they going to get there? Are you giving them water and air filter?
Mm,
Water and air filter, or you just want to have a meeting to
mm,
hear them tell you the same shit you already know
yeah.
outside of just giving, or why do we not have urgent care or something in Claire?
Hmm.
We should,
Yeah.
because people can't even get to, to the places that they need to. When we did our report on the food apartheid,
Mhm.
it came out that we were like one of the second lowest rating in the country.
I could believe that.
Like the country.
I could very believe that. Yeah,
You know?
it's astonishing when you read some of these reports and you see some of
Yeah.
the statistics and how we compare to other areas. And it's like, you would think, like, it feels like a weird form of like gaslighting because, like, remember when we were called the most livable city and
Yes.
people were like, where? Like, here? And you see these other statistics and you're just like, there's so much that disproves it, but it mostly disproves it in our communities, not so much the communities where you are comfortable, which there are some areas that have like cleaner air. And I remember reading that report that it
Mhm.
was healthier to live in Point Breeze than Homewood, and they were like a 2-minute walk from each other.
Yes.
And that's how like the Mon Valley is compared to Pittsburgh. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
Pittsburgh does have like all of its issues and it has its own
Mhm.
environmental issues. I
Yes.
was there for a while.
Mhm.
But the Mon Valley has a more like disproportionate, extreme version of environmental harms that we have out here. And it's a combination of a lot of those. And a lot of people in my work, they do ask, like, why didn't somebody give me an air filter or a water filter when I moved here, or at least tell me that I should have one because it could have
Mhm.
saved me a lot of harm. Like Mr. Perryman, if you listen to his
Mhm.
story, he moved here thinking like, I'm going to move here, I'm going to retire, I'm going to be comfortable. And if you're an older person in a hazardous area, it affects you even worse. So he's sitting here and he's like getting unhealthier and being like,
Mhm.
what's going on? And finding out that it's because of where he decided to move because the houses are cheaper, which goes to a whole other like
Right.
issue. But a lot of people are finding now, especially in the Mon Valley, that as
Mhm.
they're getting displaced out of the city, as they're getting like moved out into our area, they're finding like cheaper rent, cheaper housing, and not knowing that there's this like big hazard of environmental harms, like that they're going to smell rotten eggs,
Yep.
that they should be having like plastic water bottles. Like I grew up that way. Like we always had water
Yep.
bottles at home, and I still do, even though
Mhm.
I hate the plastic industry. But these are things that we are disproportionately left with, where we have to find ways to resource it ourselves, like the water filter distributions that we had. Like I'm
Mhm.
thankful for the Women for Healthy Environment for being able to coordinate those. But even you saw like it was difficult to even be able to distribute those. And it even is difficult for air filters to distribute them because you also have political interests that
Yeah.
says if you accept this resource that wasn't given by us, even though it can make you healthier, that you are somehow against us and against the growth of the economic, you know, prosperity of our community. And it's just like, why should I have to choose between my health and my community getting money, where now I'm in a
Mhm.
position where I have a borough that has a tight budget and we're a small municipality. But I'm like, what grants can I apply for to levy some of this, stress that's on my borough, to give them
Mhm.
resources to do this work? And my proudest one is, we have a shade tree committee that
Mhm.
had a small budget, and taking down a tree is a big expense. And so I was like, what grants are out there? So when I heard of this DCNR grant, when I heard of the Clean Air Funds,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm going to apply for that. It might take me a little more time out of my week, even though I have 50 million things, but
Mhm.
it will alleviate this issue in my community. And we won't have to like beg our senators and beg our elected officials
Mhm.
to give us more money to deal with this issue or
Mhm.
go into debt. And that's what a lot of these municipalities are facing, where it's like, it's either I take money from like private interest or elected officials, or I find a way with my strap capacity to get some grant funding. And then
Mhm.
who's to say that you're going to get that grant? Because they're also very complicated. And we are not taught a lot of grant writing skills. And I don't know if that's on purpose. And the
Mhm.
access to a lot of these grants, it's like, you really need to know like how you're doing it, what you're doing to get a lot of these funds. And we're trying to alleviate a lot of those issues because it's a department issue a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Um, but I just I think it's a lot on our responsibility in this time where we are kind of like in our own for our state and our local,
Mhm.
politics, to really be on people when they do these grant processes and ensure that we know who they're getting awarded to, how they were able to classify them as environmental justice communities, because that can also change a lot of these applications. Because a
Mhm.
lot of times they'll say environmental justice communities and it'll go to like Etna and Fox Chapel. And I'm like, but it's not going to Clariton, McKeesport. And hopefully this year, Clean
Mhm.
Air Funds can go to the support of Valley Clean Air now as they do air filter distributions
Yeah.
on their own. But they have even had a hard time, like grant after grant, getting any funding for it. And I'm thankful that Heinz, and I think there's another funder that's going to also help them with that funding, and Pitt for
Good.
helping them with a lot of their law work. But it took nonprofits and it took like outside resources for them to have the capacity to give air filters to community residents that wanted and needed it. And I heard that some elected officials took some too. I am one of those two, but I
Mhm.
heard that some other elected officials that aren't so much on our side got one too. So they
Mhm.
think about supporting that.
Mhm. And when we did those listening sessions, the community pointed that out. They said, we know that the inner fighting with the politicians stops us from getting resources.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that happens in other communities, but here in the Mon Valley, that is rampant because
Yeah.
the corruption, I mean, it's like rampant. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
like because the corruption is so rampant,
Mm-hmm.
and this person not liking this person, like, stops us from getting food, like actual a food bank or grocery store. Clareton does not have a grocery store.
And that's ridiculous.
Like, what?
As Aldi's is opening up everywhere.
Right.
And I'm thankful for our Aldi's, but it's just like they're also, I found, opening a grocery store like just down the street from us as well, like um near the like Point Breeze area. And I'm like, if you can do two so close together, you should be able to do some further out as well. But
Right.
it also comes with a lot of like economic interest.
Mm.
And we are on a main road that goes to East Liberty, also goes to the highway, so
Yep.
it's economically feasible to put it in our area. But just to put it in an area where people are starving doesn't seem to make sense to a lot of people, because they don't make no money off of it in their minds. But it's like, if it's the only food resource, like only fresh
Mhm.
food resource, like people will come. Like even in our area,
Mhm.
like we have some options, but like to get
Yeah.
real good fresh food, like we have to go all the way to Giant Eagles in Edgewood, or
Mm.
we would have to go to the Aldi's that's like in Homestead, or go all the way to the waterfront to get something like decent.
Yeah.
And we do have like, Save a Lot, but like produce there, in my opinion, hasn't been the best. And I've seen that in other communities as well, which
Yes.
also becomes an issue. And somebody raised a good point. They were like,
Mm.
how is it that y'all were able to open these dollar stores? You were opening general, like
Mhm.
Dollar Generals. You have all these low cost stores, but to build something like fresh and big, like the Aldi's that we had, like to have something with that many selections and
Yeah.
access to the neighborhood, good jobs in the neighborhood, like that doesn't seem to be a priority on the political list, which this
Mhm.
is a political issue. Like, they have to come to our planning commissions, they have to get permits approved. Like, this should be something that is priority for our elected officials in all our communities. The issue for us is we have these small municipalities where everybody
Yep.
knows each other. And then they're like, oh, well, I remember when back in the day you did. It's just like, it's about all of us, which is
Right.
why I tell people, take your feelings out of it. Like, yes, you
Hmm.
are a resident. Yes, you understand things on a personal
Yeah.
level, but this is not about just you. It's
Yeah.
about the whole community, all the people that voted for you, all of their opinions. So if you're not considering them in your decision, then you're not making a decision for them. And I unfortunately see a lot of like electeds that choose to think that they
Mhm.
know what's best for their community and makes the decision based on that. And it does come at the detriment of the health and the comfort of a lot of communities because they don't come to every council meeting. They're not
Right.
watching every council meeting. They didn't look at the agenda to see what
Hmm.
resolution was passing. And it is timely. It is a lot of energy and
Yeah.
nobody's sitting down with them. So I'm thankful y'all are doing like civic engagement because
Hmm.
that is a big first step to people understanding where they can go and how they can get resources and keep their electeds accountable.
Yes, and it is our duty,
Yeah.
to keep these elected officials accountable, and we have to speak up.
Hmm.
We have to make sure that they do what they are saying, they're going to do. And if they don't, we need to get rid of them.
Hmm.
We've been doing that civic engagement piece for years now because we understand that the power is in the people. It is
Hmm.
not in any elected official. I don't care how much of a good speech they can give. I don't care how nice they are.
Hmm.
It's all about the collective power of the people, not one person, not one organization, but the collective power of the people. So for us to kind of close out, can you let people know how they can get involved with the Breathe Project? Some of the things that you're working on for environmental justice, so folks can get involved.
Yeah. So if you do want to join the Breathe Project, you can definitely check out our website or, send an email to me at NaTisha at breatheproject.org. We are a nonprofit coalition. So people joining the Breathe Project Collaborative are
Mhm.
nonprofits. So if you do want to, support and be a part of it as an individual, we do have some like coalition committee groups that are specific
Mhm.
to like specific campaigns. Like if you're into petrochemical, if you're into railroad safety, if you want to focus on like Mon Valley leadership issues,
Mhm.
we do have different committees for those. We are currently doing a single use planet screening and panel discussion to talk about all the petrochemical areas around our nation. That includes like Louisiana, includes us here in Beaver, PA, and kind of how it's been affecting their community. So definitely look out for that. I'm actually going to a climate action rally today, the Climate Can't Wait rally, which is a national rally that is stopping here in Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
And there are going to be some elected officials talking about how we can deal with climate change and climate issues in this new administration. But in general, I would say go to our Breathe Project YouTube and our social medias.
Mhm.
I've been making video stories of all of the people that have been speaking, and I plan to share a big series of those people so that we can have that storytelling
Mhm.
aspect. So stay tuned for those and check us out.
And then I know you had mentioned the new administration.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you know about how some of this is going to trickle down with EJ?
Yeah, so I will say I don't know as much on the state level that I would
Mhm.
like to know. I know that we are evenly split right now because
Mm.
unfortunately we lost our representative, Matt, and you know, so sad of a loss and very too soon of a loss.
Yeah, too
But
soon.
very too soon. I was very shocked when I heard that, but now it unfortunately puts us at a house split. So our majority is going to be on this special election for his seat.
Mhm.
So that can determine a lot for our House majority. Our Senate, is not in most of our favor, which is our most toughest pass, but we do have good senators here.
Mm-hmm.
And our county is going to be where a lot of focus is going to be. We have a new county executive
Mm-hmm.
that seems to be, so far standing up with her word and engaged in the community and promoting the community. Has a new board of health that she
Yes.
appointed, which has a lot of wonderful Black women on there, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy for that board of health transition, and we do have a new health director who has been outspoken about air pollution and environmental harms and has said that she is going to make that a priority. She has engaged the Mon Valley community residents. I hope she continues to follow up on that engagement. So we have some hope on a good transitioning of a good county future. I don't know what the state of the city is going to be because they're in the middle of a mayor election, but I am happy for how our county is transitioning. Our council is being, very open minded, listening, very engaged, and we have some seats coming up there. And I did hear that was it Sam DeMarco has like retired or stepped down.
Okay.
Somebody has stepped down, and we have a couple more people that may be stepping down. So we'll have some open county council seats. So if people are interested, please get into those council seats and get into the county in general. There are some
Mm-hmm.
open positions there, like our hearing officer, that if we get people that are more engaged in the community or more understanding of the community, it can change a lot of county policy, which affects all of us, whether we live in the city or the Mon Valley.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we kind of let you go?
Um, I think the only thing I would share is we have two things. We have a breathe cam, and we have our Smell Pittsburgh app. Our breathe cam does 24/7 4K video of our polluting facilities. That includes Claritin, Cokeworks, that
Mm-hmm.
includes the Ecker Thompson Mill, that even includes the Shell plant. And we are looking for, people who are interested in having cameras. It is confidential. We do not share your information. We do not let people know where these cameras are. We just want to keep holding polluters accountable. And we want to make sure that if explosions happen, like we just had, we're able to capture it and share it as like, our evidence of this is what's happening. And if you have a smell complaint, like if you smell rotten eggs in the air,
Mm-hmm.
please download our Smell PGH app. It is a quick little form. You just say,
Mm-hmm.
this is the rating, this is what I smell, this is what I'm feeling, and just submit that in there. And what it does is it not only shows people visually how many people are complaining about the air to be, and it encourages people, oh, I smell that too. Oh, I saw that too. I mean, we have a comment section, so go wild in there. But it also, the complaints are sent to the county. So we show them we have this list of complaints. It's in an Excel sheet. Your information can be confidential. So if you don't want to put your name, that's fine as well. But it really helps us with the accountability as well. So please check those two things out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming on to talk about this important topic with us.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Greatly
Of course,
appreciate
of course. All right. Thank you so much again to NaTisha for joining us to have that important discussion about environmental justice. And just to let everyone know what TAAG is doing around environmental justice, we have a McKeesburg Get Out the Lid campaign presently. We've been doing out with One for Healthy Environment for a little over a year now. So that is a resident-led campaign. So we are in the process of recruiting residents to be community champions. There's a small stipend for that. So if you're interested in that, we'll put the link in the chat. That's for McKeesport residents or organizations that do work in McKeesport as well. We also are part of the Environmental Justice Table, which was convened by Upstream Pittsburgh, and it's also resident led. And we have some resident leads that are on the table now, and we're working on two campaigns. One is around our water, and another one is centered around racism and environmental justice, because we just feel like that is something that people just don't discuss a lot. So we'll put that information in the chat as well. If anybody wants to get involved there. Outside of the Breathe Project and NaTisha, we do work with several other groups that are addressing environmental justice. Breathe Project and 412 Justice are consistently groups that include the Mon Valley, so we work a lot with them too. Just a few months ago, we did Environmental Justice Candidates Fair, along with 412 Justice and Power as well with Terry Miner Spencer. So 412 Justice has several campaigns people can get involved in around environmental justice as well as other social justice issues. We'll put their information in the chat. Pittsburgh United just won a campaign they were working on for a customer assistance program and an advisory board as well. So we'll put their information in the chat. These groups are also part of the EJT, the Environmental Justice Table, that was convened by Upstream Pittsburgh. So get involved. We'll put those things in the chat. If people want to get involved with it or get out the Let McKeesport campaign, as NaTisha was bringing up some of the lead levels. McKeesport has some of the highest lead levels in this county and literally the world, which is horrible to even think about. So we have to do something about that. So that's where the McKeesport Get Out the Lead campaign came from. So please get involved and get involved in those things. Speak up. Make sure your voices are heard. And I know that because people have told me, "Oh, Fawn, I just don't have time to get involved in environmental justice. Like we're fighting this, we're fighting that." I get it, but let me explain to you the intersections of environmental justice. You're fighting, and you get winded walking up the hill. That's environmental justice. If you smell this horrible smells from everywhere, that's environmental justice. All of these things, or you not feeling well and you're in an area where you can't breathe the air. Like check your air quality. If you start not to feel well, there are a lot of alert systems. Breathe Project has a lot of these on their website, on their social media. Check the air quality that day. If you're not feeling well, if your stomach hurts, if your asthma acting out, if you just can't breathe out of nowhere, all of these things are connected. So get involved, pay attention to your environment, to the climate, environmental justice, climate justice. These are all real things that Black people and other marginalized groups should be involved with because we are the most affected. So, literally, why people call environmental justice the new Jim Crow because of the way our communities have been set up by redlining, gentrification, and all the other fancy words they come up with just for racism and shit. That's how we are affected. So, thanks again for NaTisha for joining us. So to close out, you'll know I spend the last 10 minutes or so talking shit, or as I say. And I'm going to talk today about two things. One is what's going on with 47 around the world, as well as some local stuff. So I'll start with what is going on with 47. So when all the executive orders started to come down, my phone was like, ding, 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 ding. I purposely ignored it. Because here's the deal, none of what 47 is doing or what is going on in Iran is going to change any of the work that TAG is doing. We've already been hyperly local focused, and we're going to continue to do that. And I do feel like people need to get back to local. People say, oh, national organizing, national politics. But if you're pushing any kind of legislation, you got to go back to the district. You got to go back to the people. You have to go back to local. So we have to get involved back locally as far as, hey, what do we do now? You do that. And TAG literally has been doing that for the past 10 plus years. Another big thing is rest. You can go from rest to resistance. And I think this is something that in a Black community, especially with Black women, people don't say enough and definitely don't have enough conversations around. So you have to rest in order to be able to resist. You can't pour from an empty cup. These are all things that we all say, especially on these podcasts to each other, but I don't know if we're actually doing it because people are literally working themselves to death without a rest practice in place. So a lot of times, I'll say organize, mobilize, rest, and repeat. You have to have that rest practice. And I'm talking about beyond getting your nails done, getting your hair done, which is all good things. This rest practice, I'm talking about taking care of yourself, loving yourself. If you need water in the day, get water in the day. How are you waking up? Are you meditating in the morning? Are you praying, whatever you believe in, or are you going to your altar? What are you doing in the morning? What's a part of your rest practice? Do you rest throughout the day? Or is it this all day, all day, all day? When are you stopping? When are you resting? Are you pausing? Are you breathing? Are you just taking a minute to yourself? That's what I mean about a rest practice. We have to build that into our activism. We have to build joy into our activism because they want us to die fighting them. And so many Black women have, especially in this area, this greater Pittsburgh area. And I don't want that to be our story anymore. So we have to build this rest practice so we can get to the resistance. Because then we won't make it there. We won't make it to a new world if ain't none of us here to see the new world. So you have to make sure that you build that rest practice into your activism. And like I said, that goes beyond getting your nails done. That means getting in touch with yourself and who you are. Another piece of this, like I said before, is just going back to the community. And I've been organizing since the 90s. Well, actually since 1991. And I can tell you that I've organized through various different social movements, administrations. One thing that I constantly see is this value of local people being looked over or sometimes pushed to the side for your celebrities or celebrity influencers or people who have bigger platforms. Is I guess that's defined by your following. And I've seen that a lot with the last election cycle. Folks just being ignored. And when it comes down to who people are listening to, who they vote for, they're listening to people in their communities. They're listening to their family members, to their elders, to their aunts, their uncles, to their parents. So that to me, a lot of times is overlooked and the value of the local people and the local voice. So we have to kind of get back to that community. And like I said, I've been doing this since 1991. And what I can tell you is no amount of research, data, or highly paid consultants will ever, I mean, ever take place of the voice of the people. I don't care how many people you pay. I don't care how many sessions you have. And I can tell you that community engagement is way more than 2 or 3 meetings, you all. It's ongoing. You never stop engaging people. It is an ongoing process. Additionally, our organizing has to involve paying attention to other areas as well. Because if not, then we get into a silo where it's just about where we're at. I'm definitely saying we should be focused locally, but there's intersections, there's things going on around us. We can't ignore what's happening in Haiti. We can't ignore what's happening in Palestine. We can't ignore what's happening in Congo. Like we can't ignore these things and act like we don't see them or see the intersections, especially with policing and the policing things they're doing in Palestine and Congo and how that connects to what's happening here in the US. So we can't ignore those things and act like, oh, that doesn't, it's not going on. We have to make sure we're paying attention to that as well. And then we also have to make sure that we're including those most affected in our community, which is Black trans people, which is Black disabled people. These are two groups that are routinely left out when we're talking about organizing and movement building. Most affected Black trans people, Black disabled people, the Black LGBTQIA plus community. We cannot leave those communities out. We have to make sure that we are all supporting one another and advocating. When we say Black people, we mean all Black people, not certain parts. We're talking about all Black people. So we have to include them as well. And then get involved locally. And if you don't, if there's a group you don't like, make your own. But you have to understand that Black people are not a monolith, so we don't think alike. So you're not always going to agree on everything that one group does. Doesn't mean you don't have to work with them. Just make sure that your principles are aligned and then you can build from there. If you have principled, I'm going to say that again, principled alignment, and you can build from there if there's principles involved. A lot of times we just organize in these communities, and sometimes the motivation is rooted in funky shit. If I can be honest, that you just haven't worked out yet. But you get through that from that collective organizing when you're doing those things together and you're working together. But you have to be aligned on the principles. You have to understand what you're organizing for. Is it social justice? Is it Black liberation? Because there is a distinct difference between the two. Not saying that you can't work with the people, but you have to understand your principles have to be aligned and then you can build from there. So I'll reiterate that again. Rest practice. Build a rest practice into your activism. Make sure that you rest and are taking care of yourself. We are not robots, and our goal, and we were not put here, the Most High didn't put us here to work ourselves to death fighting white supremacy. Have a rest practice. Rest, do not give up. Come back. Have a rest practice. Give local back to community. We need to be involved more locally, what's going on in our communities, but not ignoring what's going on around us, you all, in the world, in Congo, in Haiti, in Sudan, in Palestine. All these things happening around us that we cannot ignore include Black trans people, Black disabled people, and Black LGBTQA plus community. We have to include everyone when we say Black. In closing, our ancestors left a blueprint for us. Let us draw from their wisdom. There's nothing new under the sun. These things have happened before. Our ancestors left things for us to do. They left a blueprint. Nothing's new under the sun. We will be all right. We gonna be all right. We gonna organize. We gonna rest. We gonna keep fighting. We gonna love one another. We gonna take care of each other. We will be all right. Locally, there was, and NaTisha touched on it a little bit. There's a special election happening, so I just wanted to take the time to kind of explain that to people. So, with the special election, the way it kind of works locally here, anyway, in this county, if a seat becomes vacant, then the party puts a person up. The party, I mean Republican Party or Democratic Party. So here, unfortunately, one of our state reps, Gregory, passed away. My condolences again to his family. So when he passed away, there was a vacancy. So if you're a Democrat, then you can put your name in the hat to be considered. If you're a Republican, you put your name in the hat, and then the party picks that person. So it's not like we, the people, get to pick it. It's the party. The party will come and they'll vote, and then they pick the one person. There was, I believe, 5 or 6 people, and they picked one person, Dan, to be the Democratic nominee. His name will be on the ballot, and then there'll be Republicans' name on the ballot. So then when you go vote, you can only pick from those 2 people. So I wanted to explain that. Y'all know I have a lot of experience with that from my state rep run when I had to do all that things to get on the ballot. So people say, "Oh, who you're supporting?" Well, I can't support anyone out of those 5 people because the party picks and the party decided. So the seat is up next year. The actual seat, the person running now is just finishing up the term. But that's the way that special elections work. So I kind of wanted to go over that because I got a lot of calls around, "Hey, who are you supporting?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't really support anyone." And then I'm independent, so I wasn't really involved in that. But now we do get a chance to go and vote in March for the Democrat or the Republican. So that's kind of the way the special elections are set up. Thank you all for joining us today. Thanks again to our guest, NaTisha Washington, with the Breathe Project. And we'll put NaTisha's information and Breathe Project here in the chat as well. Until the next time, stay black and be blessed. Peace.